Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm your host, Todd Marquardt, here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Also on podcasts everywhere and Facebook Live and YouTube. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can click the little bell so you get notifications when those videos are uploaded. The YouTube videos are cut into 4 segments so that you can spend less time learning about the law and maybe just do that on your break or when you're cooking, or hopefully not when you're driving. That would be podcasts, but you can search for podcasts everywhere, and you can find previous episodes also on talklawradio.com. So today, we're here to help you listen and learn about your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today we're talking about last wills. Should they be typed or should they be handwritten? And I'll further clarify that when they're typed, I would recommend that they be typed by a competent legal professional. Of course, you could probably pay your attorney to handwrite it, but that doesn't do much for you. Then it's more like typed than handwritten. I'll clarify that too. So the reason that someone would handwrite their will might be because a handwritten will in the law is called holographic. I don't like that word because I don't think many people know what it means, so I just say handwritten. The requirements of a handwritten will do not include witnesses if it's entirely in your handwriting. So there are some court cases out there where somebody else handwrites it and you sign it. Well, the law would consider that to be the same as a typed will. So I digress. We were talking about testamentary intent, and there was this court case that we were going over. And so what happened is the deceased person had a typed last will and then had another writing that was titled Supplementary to My Last Will. And so the court was called to rule on whether that handwritten part was a codicil. The word codicil really just means amendment. So a codicil is an amendment to a will. And the court found in this case that the handwritten instrument was not a valid codicil or a will. The court concluded that the handwritten instrument, which began with the words supplementary to my last will, was not intended as to modify or revoke the provisions of the typed instrument. The court said the deceased person wrote those things, didn't include testamentary intent. The reasoning was the writing could not be a codicil, was not intended as a declaration of the manner in which he would have his property pass and vest at his death, but was only for the purpose of informing his wife that he had executed a will and to tell her where to find it. And there were further statements that were merely suggestions and advice as to how to manage his estate, which he had attempted to devise by his prior will. So you're probably wondering, how did the judge know what this deceased man really intended? Well, the court wasn't there when this man hand wrote these things, and so the way that the court figures out what his intention is by reading the words on the page. Sometimes the court will say, this is the 4 corners rule. We can interpret what the document means within the 4 corners of the document. So this is another example of why words matter. Okay, there's some other cases, but let me go into some detail about what I like to include in a will. I like to include family. It's important that everybody remember or recognize that you remembered who was related to you. That's part of testamentary capacity, is knowing in your mind who the natural objects of your bounty are. What that phrase has come to mean, as defined by the courts, are family members or friends, people that you would naturally want to benefit after you pass away. So we like to list those people out in the will somewhere. So that will help to minimize a will contest, or at least somebody from alleging that you didn't know what you were doing because you didn't even remember who is related to you. Another question: do you want to include after-born or adopted children in your last will? So if you make a will and you name your firstborn child in the will, in this family section, and you say you want everything to go to your children, well, that would include that person. But what happens if after the day that you sign that will, you have other children, and tragically, God forbid, maybe you pass away, and those children born after the day you signed the will are not mentioned in the will? Are they just left out? Well, there's a legal principle called pretermitted children that would help them make a claim that you would have wanted them to be beneficiaries of your will. But let's say maybe you raised the firstborn child and started a relationship with somebody else, had children with that other person, but then never spent much time with those children. Is the law going to presume that you would have wanted those children in your will? And the answer is probably yes. So that's why it's important to update your will, because you can name whoever you want. You don't have to leave anything to your children if you don't want to. But the law has these presumptions in place because some people don't make a will, and so the property has to go somewhere. And I like to say, if you don't have a will, the state of Texas wrote one for you. You just don't get to decide what it says because it's already in the law. The lawmakers decided that for you. Another question: would you consider your stepchildren to be the same as biological children? Would you want them to receive something in your will? Well, the law does not presume that you would leave anything to a stepchild. So if you have love and affection for a stepchild and you want to leave them a gift upon your death, you have to put that in a will. So these are some things that people often forget when they're handwriting their will. And so you come up with these ideas by talking to a professional about what's important to you, because you might not remember these things. Okay, here's another question. Do you want children born from frozen embryos after your death to receive an inheritance? I don't run into that question a lot, but if you have donated genetic material and you want those future-born children to receive an inheritance from you, then there's special things that you need to write in your will. Do you want to disinherit somebody? Do you have pets? I forgot to mention, Mark, that Lexi the Law Dog is here with us today, and when I start talking about the law, she goes to sleep. I don't know why. She's just not interested. The trainer at PetSmart says that Lexi and other dogs don't speak a lot of English, so they don't know a lot about what you're saying. Lexi would prefer that I use hand signals when trying to figure out what I'm trying to get her to do. She's much more behaved now. Those first couple episodes that we had when I brought her to the station, she was quite restless, and I hope that you stay tuned all the way to the end of the show, because our legacy segment is going to be with Lexi. I'm hoping to sit her in the chair next to me. Hopefully she'll stay put. I want to ask her some direct questions about how she wants to be remembered. That's in our legacy segment. We'll see how it goes. This is not rehearsed. This is going to be live on Facebook. So if you want to see how Lexi reacts to the legacy segment of the show, you have to stay tuned to the end. We have to take another break, but when we come back, I'll be talking about some issues with specific gifts. A lot of people mess this up when they're handwriting a will, so I want to give some information out there about those hidden legal issue blind spots. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.